What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, in today's first story, an entitled daughter demands from her own mother $100,000, no more, no less, to help her buy a house. Now, you might be thinking, oh, maybe the daughter is, young, trying to get on the property ladder. Her mum's got a lot of money. No, she's over 40 years old, and she spends loads of money. She just asked for a free $100K. Wow. Helping out doesn't mean giving you $100,000. My wife's Aunt Louise is a great lady. She and her husband lived in the San Francisco Bay Area and bought their home in the late 1970s. After her husband passed a few years ago, she sold her home for over $1 million and moved back to live closer to her family where she grew up, farming areas in Southern California. She's now in her late 60s. Aunt Louise had 3 children, who are now all in their 40s. The 2 oldest are nice, normal people. Her youngest, Kay, though, is a real piece of work. She meets all the criteria for a psychological diagnosis of narcissism. This is just one of literally dozens of stories I could tell. First, some backstory about Kay's husband, Pedro. He was a good provider. About 10 years ago, things began going well, and he began making pretty good money. To Kay, however, higher income meant more spending, and soon she was buying a new car every 2 years. They went on cruises, she had all the latest and greatest gadgets. As the old MTV tagline used to go, too much is never enough. To augment her lifestyle, she would routinely run to her mum, Aunt Louise, with a sob story or another. We don't know the true figure, but I've heard rumors that Aunt Louise has given her more than $20,000 over the past few years. Kay and Pedro managed to keep their heads above water. But when COVID hit and the state of California ordered economic shutdown, money became tight. Then, in October, the company went out of business. Pedro found another job, but was essentially starting his career over. Naturally, they'd begun fighting about money, and 2 weeks ago it came to a head. After hearing the blasphemous word no one time too many, Kay announces she's getting a divorce. Being California, she naturally expected the courts were going to give her one last payday from this poor guy. Her car, their house, his 401k, and generous alimony. However, in her greed, she forgot that Pedro had kept draining his 401k to pay off credit cards, and all those papers about the house she was signing every couple of years was to refinance their house to pay off more credit cards. So there was almost no equity. And with having to start his career over, alimony wasn't going to be that great. So Kay does what she always does and goes running to her mother, Aunt Louise. Aunt Louise is naturally sympathetic and urges Kay to try and reconcile. But failing that, she might be able to help her out. Literally 2 hours later, Kay texts Aunt Louise with a photo of a pricey condo and asks for $100,000 to cover her down payment and cost to furnish it. Aunt Louise naturally pushes back, telling Kay that helping out didn't mean $100,000. She'd meant letting Kay live with her for a while she got back on her feet, writing a check for security deposit and first month's rent, and maybe helping with some car payments, not $100,000. But at this point, Kay totally flips out. Here are the things my wife said were direct quotes. I'm getting these third hand, so they might be slightly off. I can't believe my own mother would be so selfish. What difference does $100,000 make? You're not going to spend it all anyway. Meaning before Aunt Louise, her mother dies. Just sell some stocks or something. Aunt Louise fortunately does have someone who manages her money, but she stays on a strict allowance. After Aunt Louise held out, Kay has begun polluting Facebook with passive-aggressive messages about finding out people's true colors. My wife is actually hoping she calls to ask for help, specifically so she can let her have it with both barrels. So let me get this straight, right? This woman, Kay, has already leached off her mum for, $20,000 in the past few years. But that's not enough. As a fully grown adult, you need to ask your mother for more money. So how about $100,000 on a down payment just because you spend too much money on credit cards? And let's be honest, probably very fancy stuff that is not necessary. As OP said in this story, you can never have too much for Kay. Clearly, wow, $100,000 just like, yeah, can you pay me that? Because I've got no money left because I spent it all. That's mental. I just wonder what the play is for Kay now because, clearly she's out of money. She has no longer got a husband that is earning money because, she's obviously divorced Pedro just like that because, oh no, my husband has no more money anymore. Let me just divorce him. That's a normal thing to do. So what's the play? Comment down below. What do you reckon? Sugar daddy? sell herself? I don't know. What could it be? What could she do next? I don't really know. I'm kind of interested to find out. Maybe she'll learn her lesson and maybe she'll learn how the world works, but I kind of doubt it. I reckon she's going to try something mad in hopes to try and get some money to spend on some more fancy stuff she doesn't really need. Now moving on to our second story. Church volunteer thinks she's entitled to my voice. I'm not a Christian, so I don't know much about churches and what the vibe is like being a part of one. But this one time when I was riding the New York subway, this lady and her friends walk into my car and she says, "Good morning," like one of those no-nonsense middle school teachers who expect you to say it back. Now, I didn't know who she thought she was or what she thought I was, but I immediately got a negative attitude from her. When I'm in public, if I don't need to engage with people, I take my glasses off. My prescription isn't that high, I can still see bodies and cars, but I can't see faces, which means that I don't inadvertently make eye contact with people, which to me, basically, means that I'm alone. When I take my glasses off, I just shut down. I don't see people, I don't hear words, and I don't speak. I just blend into the background. On this subway ride, I was standing with one arm around a standing pole. At some point, this churchwoman did this whole speech about how she's collecting donations for her fringe church, and she and her friends started going around with bags to collect money. She asked every single person for money, and when she got to me, I said nothing. Now, most people reacted to her in some way, but I just kept standing there. See, if I don't have a reason to say words, and there are no consequences for me not saying words, I just don't say words. I'll look at you, but my lips are in their resting state. Zero reaction. She got all up in my face, like, "Spare some change for the..." name of some forgettable church, and when I didn't say anything, she started with, "Hello? Hello? Excuse me, I'm talking to you, sir. Can you spare change? What's with you? Answer me." And she just berated me like this for like a whole 4 minutes before she finally gave up. At no point did it cross her head that there might have been a valid reason for me not reacting. For instance, what if I didn't speak the language? What if I was mute? What if I was deaf? What if I just didn't want to talk to her? It was like it was such a serious thing for her to get this donation from me, or the disrespect of not being responded to was so high that she had to escalate. You're not entitled to my voice, woman. I can choose not to speak to you, and there's nothing you can do. Would it have been better if I did say something? Yes, it's always going to be better if you do what everybody tells you to do, but that doesn't mean that you have to do it. In my opinion, guys, I think it's pretty bold anyway to just go on a random subway and ask for donations that are not to a charity but to a church. If you're going on asking for donations to a charity, then that's fair enough. You're helping out people in general, or just, you're helping out. But if you're asking for donations to a church, then that is not naturally something that everyone can get behind or support or want to support, because of course not everyone is Christian. So it's a bit weird that you would just go on a random public train and just ask for donations to a church rather than to a charity. That's my first point. Second of all, if you're asking for donations to anything, surely one of the most principal things that you have to be when requesting money is kind. Because if you're not kind, then who is going to want to part with their money for free? I just don't understand that at all. She's coming with the complete wrong tact here. You have to be super kind to everyone that you ask, because ultimately you're asking for their free money. So if you're going up to random strangers on the train and saying, "Wait, why are you not talking to me?" instead of just moving on politely and saying, "Okay, no worries, let's move on, ask someone else who might pay us," then you're just going about it the whole wrong way. It's so rude and ultimately so unrealistic in expecting that would get you money. I just don't see how pestering someone like that would ever have the desired consequence. But hey, I personally don't ask people for random money for my church. So yeah, maybe it works normally. I kind of doubt it though. And now for our final story. I guess planes would wait for their passengers in those days. This is a story that takes place during my retail days in the Big Blue Box. By the way, guys, if anyone actually knows which store the Big Blue Box is, can you let me know down below? Because I see it quite often and I genuinely have no idea what it is. Appreciate it. Anyway, a lady comes up to our counter and says she wanted RAM installed. I quoted her the price for the RAM and the install. I don't remember the price of the hardware, but it was likely expensive, since it was DDR and the service was roughly $40. First, she has a hissy fit over the fact that we had the audacity to charge for our labor. The usual, "But it's so easy for you guys," and whatnot. I explained to her that while cumbersome, her laptop is designed to be opened, and she could easily do it herself if she wanted. But either way, it takes time. This being aside from the fact that if we screw up and break something, we're basically going to have to give her a new machine, so she'd better pay something to us. Either way, look, she was going to have to pay. I guess once she heard the term time, she decided to complain about something else. and wanted to know how long it would take us. Even though I can have it installed and tested in under 10 minutes, there were other people in line, and other people that had quick work ahead of her. So I quoted within an hour. Now the standard at the time was 24 hours, but I was just being realistic. She pitched yet another hissy fit about how I can't wait for that, and I've got to catch a plane. I offered to let her come back later next week, and I'd make sure she was priced the same price for the RAM should it be marked a different price when she got back. And she started going on about how she needed it before she left. I told her, we can't do it in this moment. We've got a line, but once it's cleared, we'll be able to get it done. Evidently though, that was the wrong answer. She finally demands the manager. I told her that's fine, but until paperwork and payment are rendered, I can't start, so it will only increase the wait time. She was fuming when the manager came by, so he took her to customer service to yell. At this point, she's already had to wait 5 minutes for him just to get there. After about 20 minutes, we get the line down, and I spend another 15 minutes getting simple hardware installs done. I think it was a network card and 2 other RAM installs. Nothing difficult, but if drivers fight or a case is designed to take 587 screws to access a slot, it can take a bit of time. Since I've already finished what needed my immediate attention, I decide to take care of other duties while my co-workers handle the other machines. I go over to customer service to pick up returns to be tested, and lo and behold, she's still there reaming out the manager. I then get a deliciously petty idea in my head, and now that it took root, I had to do it. I pass by him and make sure to tell him quite audibly, hey, I finished off with the front counter machines, I'm gonna grab and start testing these, since there isn't anything else for me to do right now. She may have been smart enough to know what I was alluding to. While she's glaring at me, I look her straight in the eye and say, in my most concerned and clearly unable to pick up on social cues customer service voice, if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about, what are you still doing here? Didn't you have to go and catch a plane? The look she gave the manager could have melted stone, and he looked at me like Wile E. Coyote right before he gets hit by a train. He later told me about how much he wishes he could throw me into a volcano, and we all had a good laugh. He also mentioned how she just kept going on about missing her flight for this. You know, the one over the service she didn't want to pay for, to install the hardware she didn't buy, that she waited for the manager to complain about, then willingly opted to complain about it for 40 more minutes instead of actually catching that flight. All of which, of course, automatically made him not believe a word she said, given there was nothing holding her there and she could have just left at any time. Yeah, to be honest guys, in my mind, there is no doubt that that flight never existed. Karen was never going to catch a plane. She just employed some weird tactic to try and get her stuff done faster and for a discount price. I think that's what happened here, right? Let me know if you disagree with me, but if you were going into a store and you wanted something done really fast and you didn't really care about the customer service or the employees and you just had to get it done at that moment, trying to get a discount, trying to get it for free, I think that most stupid people might come up with some sort of excuse like, oh, I've got to catch a flight or I've got something else to do in, 10 minutes, get it done now, trying to skip the queue. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. Let me know if you agree, guys. Do you reckon she actually had a flight? For me, there's no way. Surely she'd have gone by that point. If she legitimately had a flight she had to get, a laptop isn't that important, is it? You can just use someone else's or just use your phone. I don't know. There's no flight, surely. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of r/Entitled People. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you want more from me right away, covering more Entitled stories, check out this playlist of all my Entitled related videos on screen right there for you to enjoy. If you are new around here, please consider hitting this button as well to subscribe to my channel for daily Reddit content. And if you hit that with notifications on, you'll be notified tomorrow when I post another video at the same time. So I'll see you then. Have a good one.